Hello, Twins fans. I'm Matt Lenz with Twins Daily, coming at you with another episode of From Kasota Limestone. And today I want to talk about Joey Gallo's usage so far, 6 games into the season. Now, before we totally dive into that, let's just acknowledge that doing any sort of deep analysis 6 games into a season isn't totally fair. Any sort of takeaways are probably going to be overreactionary. So I'm just kind of making some observations that I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm not mad, not ready to set the world on fire. Don't think Rocco Baldelli needs to be fired, but just kind of interested to see how these play out as the season goes on. The first one I kind of mentioned in my last video, don't agree with him being our everyday first baseman when he is a Gold Glove caliber corner outfielder. He is an average at best, below average probably first baseman, and we have plenty of utility infield options to kind of move around the diamond to allow him to play in the outfield. Now, of course, if we were to do that, that would probably spell the end of Max Kepler as our everyday right fielder, but I'm okay with that. So that's one observation that I've made so far. We'll see, if and when Kirilloff comes back, how that's going to be handled. But just don't love the fact that he can be an elite outfielder, but he's not in the outfield. Now at the plate, this is even a smaller sample because we haven't faced a lot of left-handed pitching. But from what I've seen, it seems like Rocco Baldelli is going to take him out of games or not start him in games where the Twins are facing left-handed pitching. This happened in Game 1. In the middle of the game, the Royals subbed out their starter for a left-handed reliever. In response, Joey Gallo was subbed out for Donovan Solano. Unfortunately, later in the game, Solano came back up facing a right-handed pitcher, and this was in a 2-0 game. Obviously, it ended well for us. We won, but all of a sudden, instead of having somebody like Joey Gallo facing a reliever at the end of the game, or towards the end of the game, we were relying on Donovan Solano. Game 2, he was actually allowed to face left-handed pitching. I think it was a soft ground out and a strikeout. Game 3, faced a left-hander for one at bat, ended up going yard. And so then we move into Game 4. That was the lopsided victory against the Marlins. This was more of a defensive substitution with Solano, but again, Solano came in, didn't even face left-handed pitching, if I recall correctly. Game 5 was Alcantara. And then Game 6, the Twins were slated to face their first left-handed starter, and Solano got the start. I believe it was in the 3-hole. And immediately what happened when a right-handed reliever came in is that Gallo came into the game. So it wasn't necessarily a rest day for Gallo because he ended up playing about half of the game later on. And so again, a very small sample, but if Gallo is going to be used as a platoon hitter, I just don't totally agree with that. Now, to be fair, he's coming off an abysmal season in 2022, and in that season, he was terrible against left-handed pitching. He actually was about a league average hitter against right-handed pitching, but just absolutely awful against left-handed. Now, if I look at a bigger sample size than just one down season, over his career, he's actually an above average hitter versus both lefties and righties. He's not a guy that has needed to be platooned in his career. So this is really where I kind of question this. We signed Gallo as a 1-year kind of prove it deal. Prove last year was a mirage and not a trend. Well, how are we going to allow him to prove it? How are we going to know if this was a trend or a mirage if he's not going to be able to consistently face left-handed pitching? Now, I use consistently kind of loosely just because there's not a lot of left-handed pitchers, so that's not going to happen. But when the opportunity presents itself, I think we need to give Gallo the opportunity to face left-handed pitching to prove to us that he can do it, to prove to us that if Max Kepler continues his hitting woes, not just from the first 3 or 4 games before he got hurt, but from the last 3 or 4 seasons, that Gallo could be an everyday right fielder and not a platoon right fielder. So again, not trying to overreact, but just some observations early on that I don't necessarily agree with. Would love just to see Joey Gallo as the everyday right fielder at this point is the bottom line. What are your thoughts on Gallo, given kind of the data from 2022, but then also the data from his career? Are you wanting to ease him in against lefties? Are we wanting to kind of see what he can do and kind of start with a platoon and maybe expand his role as he proves he can handle it? Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Twitter at Lenzy2108, or let me know on YouTube at Lenzy2108, Musings from Twins Territory.